What is up, you guys? My name is Aubrey and this is my channel, and today I want to walk you guys through how to apply for the PPP if you are a second-time applicant. So if you're somebody who has already received funds through the PPP program through the CARES Act, then this video is for you if you're somebody who wants to receive a second round of funding. So I'm going to be walking you through step by step what the application is, how to fill out the application. That way, once you go to your banking institution, you will know what to expect. So let's get started. So before we go into the details on how to apply for the PPP, let's refresh our memory on the eligibility requirements of a second draw applicant. So remember that if you're applying for the PPP for the second time, there are targeted eligibility requirements, meaning that the SBA and the government doesn't want the second draw money to go to just anybody. They want it to go to people that really need the fund. And because of that, the requirements for the second draw versus the first draw are a bit different, and they're more targeted for that second draw applicant versus the first draw applicant. So with it being said, per this sheet from the SBA, and I will include this down in the description below so that you guys can check it out if you would like. Right here is our requirements for a second time applicant. You can see that I'm highlighting it right here. And it is a borrower is generally eligible for a second draw PPP loan if the borrower has previously received a first draw PPP loan and will or has used the full amount only for authorized uses. Number 2 is has no more than 300 employees, and number 3 can demonstrate at least a 25% reduction in gross receipts between comparable quarters in 2019 and 2020. An alternative to this is also just showing a loss of 25% or more for the entire year. So if you showed a loss for the entire year of 2020 versus 2019, that would also be suitable. And I'll also go through how you can prove this in this video as well. So those are the general requirements. If you do not meet these, if you also did not have a business as of February 2020, then you would also be ineligible as well. So there are a handful of requirements that you have to meet in order to apply for the PPP. Now, additionally, remember that with the PPP, unlike the EIDL, where you can just go online on SBA.gov and apply directly on the SBA's website, this is not the case with the PPP, and you do have to apply through an authorized lender. So let's first jump into the first part of applying for the PPP, and that is the application. So this is what the application looks like. It says Paycheck Protection Program, Second Draw Borrower Application Form. I will include a link to this down in the description below if you want to check it out yourself. But the first step is to figure out which one of these apply to you. Are you a sole proprietor? Are you a partnership? Are you an S Corp? Are you a C Corp? Are you an LLC, an independent contractor? Which one of these in this section apply to you in your business? Now remember, an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corp, that means that you have something legally formed, that you are a legal and legitimate business entity. Whereas if you're going to choose self-employed individual, if you're going to choose independent contractor, that could mean that you are not a legitimate business. Instead, you've just been operating like as yourself. For example, if I drove for Uber and I didn't have a company, I would just be an independent contractor working with Uber. If you do freelance website work or freelance writing, you would fall under this category as well. So if you do not have a proper business, that is what you would put here, either independent contractor, self-employed individual, something like that. Next is your DBA, that is doing business as. That's the name that you're known as. You don't necessarily have to fill this out if you don't have a DBA. You can either put your own name if you're an independent contractor. You can also just leave it blank if you don't have a DBA or if you don't know what it is. Next is year of establishment. So you want to put what year your business was formed in, and this can be anything. Now remember that if your business was formed in late 2020 or in 2021, you would not qualify. So you have to make sure that your business qualifies, that you put the truthful year that your business was formed, because the IRS will check this. So for this example, I will just put 2000. Next is business legal name. So this would be the legal entity name for your business. If you have an LLC, it would be whatever is on file for your LLC. If you are just yourself and you're an independent contractor, if you're a gig worker and you do not have an LLC, then it would just be your personal name. So for the example of using myself, if I was doing it for, freelance writing, if I was doing it for Uber, for Lyft, I would just put Aubrey Janik. So if you do not have an LLC, just put your own personal name. Next is your NAICS code. Now, what this is it's basically a code that categorizes what type of business you take part in. If you don't know what this is, then chances are it's not applicable to you. And if you know what this is, then fill it out and put whatever code is applicable to you and your business. This isn't a required piece of the application. For me, I don't know what my code would be for what businesses I take part in, so I'm gonna just leave it blank. But again, if you know what this is, if you know what codes apply to your business, then I would fill this out. Otherwise, just simply leave it blank. Next is your business address. So if you're an independent contractor, if you're a gig worker, you would want to put your home address here. If you are a LLC and you have a proper business, then you would want to do the primary address for that business. After you have that filled in, you'll want to put your primary contact and the email address of that primary contact. You'd also want to put a business phone. If you don't have a business phone, then just put your cell phone number. Next is your average monthly payroll. So if you are somebody that has an LLC, then you would want to pull this data from whatever payroll processor that you use, something like QuickBooks or any other type of service that you may use. You could tally up your pay stubs. You can have a variety of different ways that you calculate this, but you would want it to be your average monthly payroll cost. And typically with the average, they take it from the last 12 months. So what is the average of your last 12 months of payroll costs? Now, the way that you would calculate this if you are an independent contractor and you don't have employees is you would want to calculate the total of your 1099 forms that you received in 2019, and then you would want to divide that by 12, and that would give you your average monthly payroll cost. Now, if there's enough questions on how to calculate this as an independent contractor, I can do a video breaking this down a bit further for you guys. So if you're interested in learning how to calculate this exactly, if you're an independent contractor, if you're a gig worker, if you do not have employees, then make sure to leave a comment down below and I can address this in a future video. So then in order to calculate how much you would qualify for the PPP, you need to multiply your monthly payroll cost by 2.5. Now keep in mind that there are certain industries that allow for you to calculate it on a factor of 3.5 instead. But in general, multiplying your average monthly payroll cost by either 2.5 or 3.5 will give you the total eligible amount that you're able to potentially request. And again, keep in mind that you cannot request a loan that is more than $2 million. Next is you'll need to put your number of employees. This includes affiliates if applicable, and it cannot exceed 300 employees. Because remember, you have to have less than 300 employees in order to qualify for the PPP. Next is purpose of the loan. You'll want to check any and all of these that apply to you. What are you going to be spending the money on? And make sure that it's accurate to what you actually plan on spending the funds on. The next section is what is your PPP first draw SBA loan number. So you'll want to make sure to have that handy so that you can fill that in because that is a required piece of information. And then right here is where we really see a deviation from the first application, is a reduction in gross receipts of at least 25%. Applicants for loan of $150,000 or less may leave blank but must provide upon or before seeking loan forgiveness or upon SBA request. So what this basically means is that if you are requesting less than $150,000, you don't necessarily need to provide this information right now, but you will most likely be requested to provide this information once you are wanting forgiveness. So it is important to have this information ready. That way, once the SBA requests it, you can just pass it on and give it to them right away. But basically, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to say, what quarter in 2020 do you want to base your information on? Do you want it to be based off the first quarter, the second quarter, the third quarter, or the fourth quarter? Then you'll want to put your total gross receipts right here of what that quarter reflected. And then you'll do the exact same thing for 2019. What comparable quarter are you comparing it to? Now keep in mind that it does have to be the same quarter. So then you'll want to input your gross receipts for that same quarter in 2019. And again, make sure to be aware that even if you don't provide this information here right now in this application, because of the fact that you're requesting less than $150,000, you will still be required to request it. So it's important to have that information. And you can provide this information with a variety of different methods, including bank statements, including P&Ls, including balance sheets. You can do it in a variety of different ways. And so if you are somebody who isn't super business savvy, if you aren't accounting savvy and you don't have like proper P&Ls, then that's okay. You can also use bank statements as well. Next is list all owners of 20% or more of the equity of the applicant. So this is just asking, list any owner that has 20% or more ownership of your business. If you are an independent contractor, then don't list anybody because it's just you. You don't have any business partners, or at least I would assume you wouldn't if you're an independent contractor. Now for this next section, we'll just kind of breeze through for the sake of time, and I went into more detail on these questions in the last video, and they are for the most part the exact same. And a lot of these questions are very common sense, and these questions will dictate your eligibility of the PPP loan. So you'll need to answer it as it applies to you in your business. So things like, has anybody associated with your business been suspended or debarred? Is anybody associated with your business delinquent on a current SBA loan? Has anybody in your business been convicted or indicted on a felony? Is your applicant a franchise? Are you listed in the SBA's franchise directory? These are just a handful of questions that the SBA needs in order to confirm that you are eligible for the PPP. And so I would encourage you to just answer these truthfully and accurately as they reflect your business. And then right here below is just certifying that what you're saying is accurate, that you've read all of the details of the application, that you understand what you're applying for. Again, I won't read this for the sake of time because it's terribly boring, but I encourage you to take the time to read this and to understand exactly what you're getting into. Below is just more questions. Again, I will just go through this quite quickly for the sake of time and for the sake of not making you guys super bored. But what it says here is that the applicant was in operation as of February 15th, 2020 and has not permanently closed. It then goes on to say that independent contractors are reporting accurate information as reflected on their 1099 forms. It says that current economic uncertainty makes this loan request necessary to support ongoing operations. It then goes on to confirm that you have shown a 25% decrease in your business. It goes on to talk about how you got the first draw and you used all the funds. It basically is just reassuring that all of the requirements that the SBA has outlined for the PPP apply for you and that you are eligible in order to apply for the second draw of PPP funds. So again, read through this, make sure that you understand it, and initial where you can. And then lastly is the signature of your authorized representative. Now remember that with the PPP, you have to apply for an authorized lender, whether that's through an online service like Bluevine or a local community bank or a nationwide bank. So you would want to have your authorized lender, authorized representative sign here. And then more information on, completing the form, what's the purpose of the PPP, just making sure that you understand exactly what you're getting into, exactly what is entailed with the PPP. Again, I won't read through this as it gets fairly redundant, but I would encourage you to read everything. And then lastly is a demographic form. Now, I would encourage you to fill this out just to make sure that everything is filled out. If you guys do not feel comfortable stating what gender, what ethnicity, what your veteran status is, then just put X. But I would fill out every single thing on this application to ensure that there is no issue having it go through to the SBA. So whatever you put here is totally up to you, but make sure that this last part is filled out. And that is the last portion of the application, but this is just the completion of part 1 of part 2 of the second draw PPP application process, because the second portion of this is the guarantee form. Now, depending on how much money you are requesting through the PPP, you may be required to provide a personal guarantee. And what this means is that you are guaranteeing the payment of PPP funds. Now, of course, if the funds get forgiven, then you're kind of off the hook. But if for some reason you aren't able to spend the funds per the SBA guidelines and you have to pay back the loan, then what this does is make you personally financially responsible for this loan. So you do have to fill this out. Number 1 is your lender information. And again, I'll kind of breeze through this because I did touch on this in yesterday's video. And for the sake of being not super redundant, I will just kind of go over this quickly. So number 1 is your lender information. You'll want to put all of the information as it pertains to your lender. As you go down here, it's very redundant to what we just did with the application. Is you'll want to put your applicant information. So you'll want to put, what does your LLC qualify as? Are you an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corp? What qualifies and what is applicable to you? Next is your legal name, any codes associated with your business, your DBA or your trade name, your tax ID number if you have one, your year of establishment, so what year did you establish your business in, your number of employees, the address of your business. Remember that if you are an independent contractor, it would just be your home address, the city, state, and zip code of that address, your primary contact, so if you're an independent contractor, it would just be you, phone number, the application number for your first draw of PPP funds, and then showing a reduction of 25% or less. So you'll want to do your quarter in 2020, the reference quarter in 2019, and then your gross receipts for both. Next is your total loan amount. So this is what we calculated earlier, monthly payroll times 2.5 or 3.5, depending on your industry. You would just want to fill that in here. And then your loan amount information. So the average monthly multiplied by 2.5, and then that brings you to the total. This does not exceed $2 million. Now remember, this is a big differentiator with the second draw versus the first draw. With the first draw, you can use PPP funds to refinance your EIDL loan, and this is not the case with this second draw of PPP funds. So keep that in mind, that is not taken into account when applying for the PPP. Then next is just general eligibility. You'd want to read through all of this. This is very, very similar to what we just did on the last application that we just went through. And so a lot of the questions are the same. But again, I encourage you to read this. This is a loan, and so you want to make sure that you read every single aspect of this application for the sake of time and for the sake of not boring you guys. I'll skip through this, but it is just general eligibility questions. Next, you'll have your authorized lender sign here, type and print the name, date, and then the title. And then that is it. So that is the entirety of the personal guarantee form. A lot of the information that you are requesting through the personal guarantee is really redundant from the application. So if you're able to fill out the application, you can fill out the personal guarantee. And remember that the personal guarantee is not required for everyone. It is really dependent on what type of loan you're asking for and how much that loan amount is for. So the personal guarantee will not apply to everyone. All right, you guys, so that is a breakdown of the second draw PPP application. If you're somebody who did the first time application for the PPP back in March, April, May, then you should have no issues doing the second draw. Again, in order to prove that you have a 25% decrease in your business, you can do so with bank statements, P&Ls, balance sheets. You can do so with invoices. There are a variety of different ways that you can prove this, so it makes it easily accessible to anybody regardless of your accounting experience. With that being said, you guys, I hope that this provided you some clarity on how to apply for the PPP as a second time applicant. This is just a breakdown of the application and not the exact process on applying. I will be doing a video tomorrow on how to apply through Bluevine as an independent contractor or a gig worker. So if you're somebody who is a gig worker and you want to learn how to apply for the PPP, then make sure to check that out. But in the meantime, you guys, I appreciate you. I appreciate you guys watching the video. If you have any comments, if you have anything to add, if you have any questions, make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.